Hey, this is Kieron, Coach's Corner Chats, and on the podcast tonight is Jennifer Klein. Jennifer, where are you at, and what are you up to?
Currently in the office at my house, and I've actually was cutting some film from practice this week, preparation for our first spring game this Saturday. So,
What does the spring season kind of focus for college coaches look like?
yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of approaches the spring season slightly different. I mean, I do think the emphasis, because the games are more scrimmages, they don't really lead towards a championship or conference standings, that it is more of a development focus. And I think for us, that's the biggest thing right now is development, building confidence individually, building confidence within our team as we prepare for the fall, the part where it's like performances and games really have more weight.
Do you find that you get to kind of experiment with people or players in different positions, or let's try this formation, or today our focus is X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, it's crazy to think that because of COVID, we haven't had this type of part of our season in almost 2 years. I mean, our current juniors, this is their first full spring. They had segment of it, and then COVID hit, and then we then did that whole thing. But so this part it's that experiment. It's getting players opportunity, chance to experiment with formations, chance to just kind of try things without that pressure of, well, I have to win this game, so I got to try to do something that I know is maybe a little bit more, you get more consistency. So you just go with it, as opposed to this. It's kind of like, well, we tried it, and now we know whether it worked or whether it's something that maybe we got to reconfigure a little bit more.
You mentioned breaking down video. During your coaching journey and experience, how helpful has that aspect of having film, even for a practice? It's so cool to even be able to break those things down. How big, and like, it sounds like you use it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think as we look at like, how do players learn, and I think they're becoming more and more visual people, and they, you think of how they operate in their everyday world. It's Instagram, it's Snapchat, it's all video. It's that kind of visual piece. And so to be able to use video and use images of them doing something, I think is a huge advantage when you're trying to teach and develop. And it's also neat, like for me as well, it's a great self-assessment when it comes to how was our session. I was just making like a little session design note of placement of some small goals, like moving them in a little bit more as opposed to where they were. Thought they were a little wide. So the next time we do that activity, it better gets out what we're trying to get out. So I think it goes for both ways, right? It's also a great tool for us as coaches to self-evaluate. How was the session? Where can we get better as well?
Just hearing you talking about the movement of goals, a couple of feet left and right. Are you a very like detail oriented, super organized person?
Yes. Yes, I am. I'm very process oriented. I'm very much like systems and things in place to make things. I'm also very much on efficiency. Like, I want things to be efficient and clean and organized. So yes, I would say so.
Now, how long have you been the Wolverines head coach?
I just finished my 4th season, about to start my 5th season come the fall.
And when you look back, being that organized person, what was that first year? What were some of the things that you wanted to put in place that you knew now 4 or 5 years down the road would start leading to like consistent success for your program?
Yeah, I think right away, the first thing that we wanted to implement when we got there was more of our attacking identity. Looking at how the team had played a bit prior to, was a more of a defending counter type of style. And I'm much more of an attacking personality, but I do like to have good defensive discipline and balance to it. So that was the first thing that we implemented. And then just kind of layering in different aspects of the game. We gave them a lot of freedom to get numbers forward in that first year. And with that, we did get exposed a lot in defensive transition. We didn't know how to defend, press higher up the field, kind of that counter press. And so we got exposed in it. But in that exposure, we were then able to say, okay, if we're going to play and attack this way, here's how we have to learn how to defend and create countermeasures and balance within our attacking shape to be able to do it. So it was a growth, and then we got better at that. And then, getting more dominant within possession so we could control the tempo a bit better was kind of the next process. And then, really being more dominant in certain areas of the field defensively. And so it's just kind of every year trying to layer in something new. This last year because we had such an experienced, very senior level team, as far as we had 11 seniors on the team. They had been with us for 3 to 4 years just because of the COVID year. We were able to experiment with some different formations because they were very comfortable with our principles, and so we were able to do that, which was a great, another layer to add to our team. So yeah, every year just trying to find a different aspect we can improve and develop.
You talked about being attack minded. If I'm assuming you were a youth soccer player at some point, was that one of your strong points, was being an attacker?
Yeah, I would say so. I was always more of an attacking player in my youth career. I was either attacking mid or a wide forward. I like to run, so it's helpful when you're an 8 box to box midfielder or a wide forward. But then when I got to college, because I was fit, I became an outside back for my first year, and then coaching change, moved back into the midfield. But definitely more. A lot of my coaches were very possession-based coaches. They liked having the ball. And so that I would say my real first experience of like defensive organization and all of that came more in college probably than in my club career. So yeah, trying to marry the two.
And what college did you go and play at?
Played at the University of Arizona.
Oh, so you've gone from climates of super hot to Michigan.
Yeah, I've been the desert of Tucson, and then I went from there to my first coaching job, which was in Las Vegas, again another desert, and then I went to Washington State, which is in Pullman, Washington. It is not the evergreens of Seattle. It is kind of more of a rolling hills, a lot of lentils in the area. So it's very different climate. And then to Southern California, and now to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And as many people like to point out, I did it backwards. You're supposed to go from like the east to the west, not the other way, but who knows?
What was the draw to go and play down in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. When I first was going through the process, I was looking, it was like, how can I get as far away from home as possible? And then, then you start to get your visits and who's interested in you. And it was like, okay, I'll take a visit, go check it out. I love just the feel of campus. I thought it was way different than I had into what I thought it would be. And then I liked the university feel. I liked the athletic vibe. Like at that time, Arizona men's basketball was rocking. It Andre Iguodala, Luke Walton, like just a really fun, very good basketball team. So it was really great being in and around that. And then I just really liked the team. Felt like it was a place I could go and make an impact. When I arrived on campus, the program was the bottom of the den of that time, the Pac-10. And by the time I left, we tied for Pac-10 champs, and we made it to a Sweet 16. So, my experience that I wanted to go in and help a program get better. so got an opportunity to do that. So, and then, it was nice being a little bit closer to home. I was about 4 hours away. And so my parents got to come home, but I was just far enough away that I didn't have to go home every weekend. I could go a little bit, but I could stay away if I wanted.
What do you think that it was about when your team progressed at Arizona and started getting better to go from like doormats to now we're one of the top 1, 2, and 3? What was it about that group that you were a part of that you think kind of made that successful run?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, credit to our coaches. We had a coaching change after my freshman year, and the coaches came in, I think did a great job of just giving good organization to our team, which really helped us. But I really think a lot of it came down to the leadership within our team. We had really good older players that really set a great mentality for our collective team. And we had a chip on our shoulder, like we didn't want to be that like team that was just, they came into your stadium and they expected to win, and we didn't want that to be that anymore. And so just kind of having that chip on your shoulder and a little bit of like, we're going to prove you wrong. And but really I give a lot of credit to our seniors and our leadership that we had on that team.
Was it during that time of playing and like experiencing two different coaching styles, maybe in a way, and seeing the success? Was that when you started thinking, you know what, I kind of like this coaching idea? You can impact culture and teams and build something that can be really, really sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was the one that first kind of mentioned to me about like being a coach. He was like, you work camps in the summer, you seem to really enjoy it, you like the game. At the time, there wasn't really, the pro league had folded. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to continue in the game as a player. And so the best way was to get into coaching. And so he was the first person that put that kind of bug in my ear. And it was, I loved the game, and it was neat to see the impact that you can have as a coach as far as player development, creating and developing culture, and helping a team have success in a lot of different areas. So yeah, it was definitely something I was like, oh, I could do this.
I love the fact that it was your dad who kind of saw this in you. What do you think it was that he looked at and said, I think you would be a great fit? Was it something have you always been kind of even in high school, were you in kind of leadership roles or on
Yeah,
teams?
I mean, I guess I've always I was captains of teams. But I think it was maybe just the way I talked about the game, that I loved the game. And I think for him it was, if you can find something that you have a passion to do and you can make a career out of it, it's never really going to feel like a career. And so he definitely was the one that started it. And now here I am, like, got a great career and love what I do. So it's been really good.
You mentioned earlier, so after Arizona, you head to Vegas. How do we end up there, and what role and responsibilities did you have there?
So I ended up there because I basically I took any coaching job and I didn't say no to anything. It was like, hey, can you coach this team? Yeah. Can you do this? Yes. Do you have a passport, and can you take a team to England and Sweden in 11 days? Yeah, I think I could do that. Like, I did whatever people wanted me to do, I did. So I went and got involved with Arizona ODP. And from that got applied to be a coach in training for Region 4 ODP camp. And basically what you do is you literally just go and you assist in any way that you can. And I met, while I was there, Coach Kat Mertz, who was then the head coach of UNLV. And, we hit it off. I helped with some, different things, ran a session here and there. And she was like, oh, it's too bad you don't work with goalkeepers. I'm looking for a goalkeeper coach. And I was like, yeah, too bad. So went back, was getting ready to do some stuff with club. And she reached out a few weeks later and was like, hey, I'm just not really liking my candidate pool for a goalkeeper coach. I think I might kind of go in a different direction. Would you be interested? And it was like, oh yeah, I'd be interested. So I literally flew up the next day, did an interview, and then was up on campus a week later. And that's when preseason started. So got into it. I was the second assistant. Was doing a little bit of everything. It was definitely an eye-opening. That was my first, kind of paid job of coaching. And it was great. Like just such a eye-opening, fun experience, learned a lot, and kind of kicked off the whole thing.
I want to go to the trip overseas. Did this actually come to fruition? Did you make it happen?
So it was literally like I was coaching a different age group for Arizona ODP, and I now forget what age group went. Coach wasn't able to go. And so they literally called and they're like, do you have a passport? Yes. Can you be gone for 11 days? Yeah, I can be gone for 11 days. All right. And I trained the team one time before we left. So I literally didn't know them. So we first went, it was us and the boys team, same age group. And we went to Manchester to do a Man United camp for like a couple of days. And then we flew to Sweden and we participated in the Gothia Cup. And what's crazy about the whole thing is we ended up winning the Gothia Cup and we didn't give up a single goal.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like this crazy, crazy experience. We had a blast. Like that's probably one of my favorite trips and favorite teams coaching, because it literally was like, you just kind of get thrown into it, and it was like winging it. And the girls were great. Some of their parents, came on the trip as well, but it was fun to go with the boys team. And yeah, we had a blast. It was great.
That's awesome. I love too the fact that things are just kind of thrown in front of you. And you're like, sure, let's give it a go and see what happens. And you go and have success. And what an awesome experience for them and you and the parents to go over there and see all those types of things. UNLV, you said lots of learning and what have you. What were some of the takeaways, and how long were you there at UNLV?
Yeah, so I was there a total of 5 years. I was there 3 years as an assistant coach, and then my head coach went on and took a different job. I was unable to go with her, so I ended up becoming the head coach there. So, I mean, when I got hired as a head coach, I was the youngest Division I head coach in the country, and I would say that those 2 years, I learned more about like management of people, the nuances, and just there's so much more than just the X's and O's, and even at times like just the logistics. It's like kind of all these different facets of running a program. But I mean, I learned a lot about cultivating culture from Kat. She was very good about spending time and working on that. That was probably my big experience in my first year there, and the time that she spent with that. Just learning more about team dynamics, different tactics and things like that. Recruiting. I mean, talk about like having to recruit the right player so that way they can be successful because of where UNLV is. Like Las Vegas, lots of temptation, and not that, if someone's going to find trouble, they'll find trouble anywhere, but just the access and the temptation that exists in Las Vegas. I mean, the school is right off the strip. And so learning the value of making sure that you find not only the talent that's going to allow for you to be successful, but the right fit that's going to enhance and grow your culture and not get caught up in Vegas. That's going to be a detriment to them as a player, but ultimately impact your team negatively.
How important were those 2 years in terms of your coaching journey? And number two, how big was it that the university would come to you at that age and say, look, Jennifer, we have all the confidence in you to do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was massive. That they saw that potential in me. It was at the time when I got hired. UNLV had just hired a new AD, and it was actually Jim Livengood, who was my AD when I was a player at Arizona. So we had a connection, and I think him knowing me as a player and the contribution that I gave to the program, I think honestly gave him some confidence, that we had this connection. But what I learned was I needed to go back to really propel myself forward. So it was one of those, like, I didn't want to just kind of struggle through it in the position. So I actually went back and was an assistant. That was kind of my next move. And I think that actually going back to being assistant after being a head coach probably helped me the most as far as my growth, because I then looked at things with a different lens. It was looking at it from how would a head coach do it, but I didn't have the full weight and responsibility of being the head coach. So I was just the conversations that I would have with my head coach, Kadani McAlpine, who's now at Georgia, and we went to USC together. And he was great because he'd be like, all right, how would you do this? And it became a very much a collaborative effort. And that was one thing that I learned a lot from Kadani, was how to build a staff and how to create a culture of collaboration within your staff. And not just within your direct coaching staff, but like athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coach, SID, development. Like, how do you bring them into your inner circle and really make them feel value and feel like their role is important? I thought that was one thing Kadani did an amazing job at, and something that I really took away from him.
So the 2 years at UNLV, and then you moved to Washington State. That's where you take the assistant position, and you start to learn even more and more from that. And I think it's so cool. How you said, taking a step back actually propelled me forward. What a cool way to kind of look. And the thing I love about each of your stops is you seem to have really kind of picked, like, I like this at UNLV. I like this at Arizona. And now I'm picking things from Washington State. What was the change? I know we kind of joked about the climate change, but when you go from UNLV, Arizona, hot, dry, and then you end up in Washington where it rains all the time and it's kind of muggy and you're dealing with those things. What was that like going from that, in that little transition?
I will tell you that the mentality of the player is different. Like, when you talk about weather creates adversity, and when you're trying to have help players deal with adversity, weather is a great thing that you can utilize. That even heat, like, just how do we manage and deal with this thing that we honestly can't control? We can't control the weather. So what can we do? What can we control that's going to allow for this not to be a negative, but that we can just kind of deal with it? So I think that was a big thing. Like, they were tough. The coaches were freezing all the time, and the players were like, no problem. They would much rather be outside than in this, like, kind of bubble that they had on campus. So the coaches were always like, oh no, practice is inside. And they're like, no, practice is outside. And it's like, okay, here we go. That's when I purchased a heated vest. Great invention, and investment. But yeah, I think, and it's different because every place, the type of player that's going to thrive at that institution is just a little bit different, because every institution has a different experience. And so, really trying to embrace and understand, okay, what is this school about, and what type of personality, character, qualities are going to really come into this and thrive. So that's something that, I've been at a lot of different spots, and they were all very, very different types of institutions. And so really learning that has helped as well.
The other thing that pops in my head is each of the schools that you've mentioned are not small schools in any way. So what has it been like to kind of be in, like, those are high levels. So there's expectations at every single one of those stops. And dealing with that, what has that experience been like in being in kind of like what, Power Five, or what do you want to call those schools?
Yeah, I mean, every place, even getting to USC and the expectation there, and of course at Michigan, I enjoy that high performance expectation. Can it get challenging? Absolutely. But I do think that if you find the way to focus more on the process and not on just the result, I think it's really it makes it more manageable and more palpable. And it is at times difficult and you get kind of caught up in, expectation and, what you're supposed to do, especially when you get to a program and like USC, for example, like you're in and around national champs, like you're walking around and it's like Olympians right next to you, and a bit of the same at Michigan as well. And so it's like, okay, like we don't want to be thought down on. We got to like raise our level to be, you feel confident walking amongst these coaches and these other student athletes. So I think that going into those environments, it just creates an environment that you want to do the work to be at the same level and perform to meet those expectations.
So you go to Washington State, take that step back to go propel forward. What is the impetus to then say, you know what, I'm going to head to USC?
So Kadani, the coach that I was working with at Washington State, he got the job and he's like, well, what do you want to do? He's like, I want you to come with me. And it was like, yeah, I'm going with you. I love my time at Washington State, but Pullman, Washington is a little bit small for just to kind of live. So it was like, let's go try out LA. And, going to USC, got an opportunity to be a part of a program that won a national championship. And seeing the journey and the process it took to get there, and to win really at the highest level within the college game, is an experience that now it's like I can draw back on, and I can use that as I'm trying to do the same here at Michigan. So yeah, every stop has had some takeaways that has helped shape me, and now trying to use those experiences to create a program that is going to have some sustained success, and hopefully we can win some championships within it.
How important was kind of tagging along with the coach from Washington State to USC, that time with him that has now propelled you to now Michigan? Like, how big and impactful was having him in the mix and being able to be a part of his staff?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was, I learned a ton from him, and it was great to go, to two different places, and, you take over a program and then you have to kind of add to it and add your layers to it. And what was neat about Washington State and USC is that they were at very different places when our staff came in and took over. Washington State was in a really good place. They played well. Their culture was good. Their coach just made a change to leave, and that was more of a personal thing. So going in and already having a good program to then making the next step great was a very different experience to USC that was towards the bottom of the league, had a lot of talent, a lack of some culture, and a lack hadn't had the success that they were expected to. So two very different programs walking in. And so getting that experience of trying to manage that and propel those programs to the next step was really helpful. And that, that's what I got in working and traveling with Kadani.
You talked about different challenges. Is it harder to go from being good to become great? Or was it not that it's ever easy, or is it easier to build from the bottom up? Like, so Washington State, solid, got a little consistency in history. Now we need to become elite. USC, if we just become better, if we're average, then we've made progress.
Yeah, I think it's like what you see when you're taking over a team that maybe isn't meeting the expectations, or is a little bit lower within their league at the time of takeover. You see improvement go really quick, and then it kind of plateaus, and then you got to go where the other Washington State, it was really kind of more of a slower process. You didn't see a huge uptick right at the start, and that's okay. Like it just yeah, each one was a little bit different, but it just like kind of that exponential versus a little bit more plateau, and then incremental changes. But it's just patience. That was a big thing, and when I left USC and came to Michigan, I asked Kadani what bit of advice, and he said patience, and that's what it is. It's just about patience, and not, you don't rush it. Just it'll get there. It's just a matter of when.
Is the patience something too that you have to communicate with the players? So at Washington State, you're like, look, ladies, we're getting there. It's not going to. Whereas at USC, you're like, yes, enjoy it, but understand at some point it's going to take a little more grinding.
Yeah, I think in everything, like it's that process. And I think sometimes when we look at the process, we just expect it to it's going up, whether it goes up quickly or it goes up incrementally. But part of that process too, as well, is that you have to have mistakes and losses to really help yourself make those next jumps. And I think that's the part that we have to communicate with our players, is that there is value in mistakes. There's value in losses. And in most cases, you get more out of a loss than you do out of a win. And wins at times have this great ability of masking things that are going on, but it doesn't really get exposed or come to a head until you have that loss. And so that's the part I think is the big thing that we have to communicate with our players, is that it's not all perfect, and there's chaos, and there's adversity, and you need those things to get to your best. And even at your best, you can still have those moments, and that is totally okay.
So we head to Michigan. At what point did you say, USC, I got to experience national title, saw what that was like? And then when did you say, you know what, Jennifer, I want to go, I want to make my own, I want to make my own trail and reach those levels as well?
I think, once I got a taste of being a head coach, I think I, always knew that I would eventually want to go back and do that again, and kind of get a second chance at it, now that I've had these other experiences. And so, I mean, I was in a very fortunate position that I was part of a really good staff, a great program. And so I was able to be picky and kind of wait till I felt like something came that I really wanted to go for. And Michigan was one of those programs. I think it's got a great tradition. It has unbelievable academic recognition. And what also, why that school kind of popped on my radar, is I went to a coaches conference, and the Michigan softball coach, Carol Hutchins, was the keynote speaker. And the way that she spoke of Michigan, and, she had, I think she's now in her 38th year at Michigan. Wow. And when you look at longevity and sustainability and the ability, like has been able to be at a place that long, and has won a national championship in her time here, has won multiple conference championships. It's like, man, okay, if she's good with that, like that's got to be a place you want to be a part of. And, it was kind of one of those, if Michigan ever opened up, that'd be a school I would look for. And I think it was like 2 years later, it opened up, and it was kind of like, all right, I gotta take a look at it. So.
I love that at the start of your Arizona and was, hey, if people ask me, I'm all in for it. But you kind of showed that maturation of, you got to a point where you said, okay, now that I've experienced what I've experienced in multiple places and different expectations, I kind of now know what I want in a program, and I know what I can bring to a program, which I think is really cool to see. that kind of growth. How has the softball coach, Coach Hutchinson, been impactful for you in your time at Michigan?
Oh, she's like, yes. I mean, as soon as I got on campus, came down to the office, said hello. We had many, many times, socializing together, talking shop, supporting one another. And it's not just me. She does it for, all of our, the coaches here, in particular, the coaches of our women's programs. And so she's an unbelievable, resource, and a huge advocate for women's coaches and women's sports, which is great to have someone like that that's so accessible and just easy to talk to.
I was going to bring that up too. The fact that, we're trying to get more and more women involved in the game of soccer at all levels and in the coaching. How important or do you feel in terms of how you carry yourself, how you do, and all those types of things? Because you're already being scrutinized for wins and losses, but now on top of that, here you are in kind of a maybe male dominated type of thing.
Yeah, I think it finally really hit me. I will say this last United Soccer Coaches Convention where, walking around before I could kind of just, go unnoticed and sneak by and just kind of, be stealth-like. And now it's not the case. There's a little bit more recognition and people coming up. And so now feeling a sense of responsibility to be the next generation of women coaches that's helping to push and to mentor and to lead, and create opportunity for more coaches, especially women coaches of color, to get into the game. And yeah, I didn't really feel that way until this last year. And it was like, oh, wow, okay, I'm in a different spot now. And now I got to be the one that's helping it, lending a hand and helping and using my platform and the resources that I have to help.
What was it like? Because I believe you presented at the convention. So what was it like to go from, I'm sure in the past you've been the person out that was taking all the notes and everything. What was it like, the experience of being up front and people like, you're, holy moly, these people are here to hear my input?
Nerve-wracking. I'm not one for attention, so it definitely is out of my comfort zone, but it's awesome. I mean, it's I think it's definite. I take it as an honor that people have recognized. I did a presentation on culture, more specifically on leadership development for the collegiate athlete, and so it's definitely an honor that people are recognizing the work that we're doing here at Michigan and wanting us to share. And I think that's the great thing is, wanting to share and wanting to say, here's what we do. Hopefully you can take something that will be helpful for you in your program and not just hoarding it for us and not having the ability to share it. But it was great. I afterwards, people coming up and having conversation and asking questions, which then, puts me in a place that I'm then learning from and growing. So it definitely was a great experience, but overall, definitely nerve-wracking to have to do it.
The other thing, so this whole kind of coaching journey started with Dad.
Yeah.
How excited has he been watching you kind of mature and become, now here you are, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. How excited is he?
Yeah. When I got the job, he goes, wow, that's a big job. Like if I already don't know it's a big job, it's a big job. No, he's been so great and, super proud. And it's awesome because I always share with him, like, here's things that I'm working on. Here's things that we're doing. And, he has a huge interest in it, follows it, probably at times watches more college soccer than I do and is telling me stuff about, what teams are doing and that. He's like my inside track of what's going on because I get in my bubble and I have no idea, what's going on outside my program. So it's nice that, he's connected, but definitely super proud.
Talking about all the soccer, what is Big Ten soccer kind of in a nutshell? Can you describe it? And most people they see basketball, they see football, and all we do is just we end up beating each other during the season, and it's physical, and it's like, is it varying styles, or what's the Big Ten like?
Yeah, it definitely is varying styles. I will say that was coming from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. Pac-12, a lot of teams play very similarly, and you're really dealing with like individual players within teams. Like you got to deal with when, at the time Katarina Macario is at Stanford. Okay, you got to deal with this player. You got to deal with that player. At the Big Ten, coming into it was like you're playing really drastically different styles. Player teams are really more geared towards like dealing with set pieces versus, they're playing for that. So, trying to manage and go from week to week and prep for games, it was, you had to make different adjustments. So that was exciting for me as a coach, because it was forcing me to have to really think through different tactical situations and how would we, adjust and deal with this and all of that. But our league is super competitive. And I think, it's not like you got the top and you got the bottom and some teams in the middle. It is like super condensed. I mean, you had Rutgers that was in the Final Four semifinals. We were in the Elite Eight. We had a couple of teams within the Sweet 16. I think we had some other teams within the Elite Eight as well. But the league is really, really competitive, and there's no easy game. And that's fun. Like you go into it, it's like you got to be sharp every game within the league, and yeah, you never know. But yeah, it's been a fun challenge.
So we've talked about other programs going from like average to good to elite. Now that you're starting to find that, what is it that you can do with your program to maybe get them to that next? Like, what's that? Maybe they say it's the missing ingredient.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not much. It's not big. It's like when you look back at our game against Florida State, who goes on and wins the national championship, and you go back and then you look at that game, and we had some really good moments, and it was like we just didn't capitalize on the moments that we had, and that's the game, right? The ones at the very top, like they might not get a lot of moments, but when they get the moments, they capitalize. And I think that's something for us to just recognize when you start to get into that Elite Eight, Final Four, the championship. It's like every opportunity is like, could be the one opportunity, and really dialing that in. But I look at our team right now, it's, we definitely have graduated quite a bit of experience from our team, but everyone's like, oh man, it's a rebuilding year. And yes, it is, but it's also like, it's just going to be different. And I think that's, if you look at every year, there's going to be common threads from team to team, but then embracing like what's uniquely great about this collection of players in this team, and try to play to their advantages and highlight them, and then just figuring out, what's their areas of improvement and helping them out in there. So I think honestly, now it's about finding the consistency from year to year. I mean, you look at Florida State, Santa Clara, even, who two teams went back to back. I mean, that's really, really impressive, because that is not an easy feat. And now that's something that we're going to try to strive for, is how can you be consistent from year to year?
What was the feeling in the locker room after that loss in the Elite Eight? You're so close, and I know people get so focused on like, we just lost, but what an amazing achievement to be one of the top 8 teams in the entire nation. How do you take that and yes, we could have would have taken care of some things, sure, but what an amazing opportunity and experience.
Yeah, I think the overall feel was like, it was bittersweet. It was like, you had that initial feeling of like, we just lost. And then you kind of sit back and you're like, we performed really well. Like, and I think that's something that they took a lot of pride in, is that we performed really well. And so I think they took pride. We won the Big Ten tournament championship first time in quite a while within the team. And so that was something that they were really proud of. And I think for our players that were graduating, like they know they left the program in a better place than they found it. And so I think anytime you lose, it's sad. And it, you know, for those that are done and they're moving on, it's like your last game, but definitely a lot of pride in what they accomplished. And so, yeah, it was kind of a bittersweet moment.
You mentioned the softball coach and her, 38 years of coaching in one institution. Do you see yourself? Is that something that you would like to leave as a legacy and see Michigan for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I this taking this job was definitely like kind of like, all right, I want to go to a place where I can be and yeah, be like the softball coach and be here a long time and build something that's sustainable. I think that's something to be valued, and it's not super common in our sport or in college athletics. You know, you look at Anson at North Carolina and Robbie at Duke, and some other coaches, kind of like Erica at Penn State and Lori Walker at Ohio State. Like they've been at their institutions for a long time and have all been really successful. And I think that that's something to definitely strive for and hoping to do here for sure.
We started out with you talking about breaking film down earlier. What does that even look like? Like breaking, like, is it taking notes? And then do you take clips and send it to players? How does the communication piece with that, just kind of geeking out here a little bit on the coaching side?
I'm definitely like a note taker. I am like, notebook, notes, clips, clips for myself, clips that we'll use in team film. That's kind of more what I'm clipping. My staff will clip stuff that will then create playlists to go to players or playlists that will go to the defenders. And then we're trying to find work right now on our volunteer assistant coach building stuff to be more player specific to then help them in their individual player plans as far as areas of improvement that's more specific to them, that maybe not as kind of more team principles. So definitely trying to find ways to better use video to help in their teaching and development individually and then as a team.
You mentioned staff. So you get to Michigan and you talked about how important it was, like being a part of those other staffs and being around like quality head coach and other assistants. Well, how did you go about getting this staff that you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was super fortunate because my now associate head coach, Katie Holteen, we've known each other since college. So we played with each other on a summer league, W League team in Arizona. So that was the first time that we really met. And then she played at Washington State. I played at Arizona. So we played against each other. And then we both I got right into coaching. She did a little bit of a corporate job, but also was coaching and then went coaching full time. So we've kind of been going back and forth. Like every year she has this thing that pops up on her phone about this message on Facebook, like 20 something years ago. So she always reminds me, oh, the message popped up. So like we worked together in some national team settings. So that was it. It was like somebody I knew. We had worked together. We understood each other. There was a kind of similar drive. So that's Katie. And then when I was putting together the staff, Tiffany Hansen was here at Michigan prior to my arrival. And so I interviewed her just like I did all the other candidates, and we got along well. And it was kind of like while we were interviewing, she was still, working in the office. So we were doing stuff together. So it's like we got this like kind of trial run of working together, and it went well. And she has such great understanding of Michigan, huge pride in Michigan. So it was like, well, this will work great because she already knows the inner workings of how to get stuff done. And so it worked out really well. And then, I mean, we had one of our at the time, our volunteer was an alum, which was great. So then that really helped us create good connections back with the alumni. She has since gone on, but then we brought another alum back that's our current director of operations, which is great. And we coached her in our first year, but her fifth year of playing. So that's always fun when you get a player that comes back and, they are like, oh my goodness, there's so much more that goes into this than I ever thought. I just thought you guys showed up to the field, coached, and like went home. And it was like, no, that's not what happens. But so that's always fun when you get that. And then we have a new volunteer assistant, Mario, who coaches here locally and has been a great addition to our staff. So we have a few positions that have a little bit more turnover, which it's not good. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because it gives people opportunity to come in, kind of get a taste, then they go off to their next thing, but have good consistency with Katie and Tiffany.
This conversation has been awesome. It's been so cool to kind of see, in my head, I see this map of the U.S. as you're moving around. If people want to connect with you and kind of just follow your journey or connect with Michigan soccer, what are some of the best ways to do that?
Yeah, I definitely social media. I will be honest, I'm not like a huge tweeter. I'm more of like a retweet, like I just retweet. But yeah, definitely Twitter, social media for all of our programs. I think I'm like at Jen Klein. I'd have to look at it, but I like all your stuff, so they can find me pretty easily.
Right
on. And you tag me quite well, which is nice. But I try to be accessible. So Jen Klein at michigan.edu. If people have questions, I want to be collaborative and help, and it's not trying to hide and keep everything to myself, but help grow the game and help coaches get better, I think is something that I'm passionate about and want to make sure that I'm accessible for that.
We talked about video, but we're even just talking about Twitter and stuff. How has that changed the coaching landscape of having social media now?
Yeah.
The ability to access like video of kids playing that you wouldn't have to go and sit on the side of the field.
It's so crazy. It's unbelievable, like social media, because like I can sit there, like the number of like just even like coaching stuff that you can get, like just like tactical analysis and like different like training videos. And so that part's been really cool because you get like some cool ideas. But then from the like recruiting side, I feel like in the last couple of months, the number of recruits that are contacting us now via Twitter and like their videos, and then they're following you, and then that has gone up like significantly. So I've had to spend a little bit more time on there than just doing it. But yeah, it's just the way that things are going. There's a lot of positives. There's you wish that there's been some negatives as far as like our athletes caring too much and the likes and how it kind of creates this thing of instant gratification. But we just have to spend time and kind of work through that.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat and am excited to share it. I'm going to shut this thing down. This is Kieron, Coach Corner Chats with Jennifer Klein, and I'm out. Peace.